Greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 458. Private property versus public property. Definitely appreciate you for tuning in live, listening to replay once again. We always get more listens in the replay, so we definitely want to do this episode. This was actually a question that just came up, and for some odd reason, we maybe have never even talked about it. So we looked over the episodes, and we don't think we talked about it. So praises and blessings to the individual that asked us this question in a consultation. If you want to get a consultation, feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. We do have open enrollment for our trustee training right now, and definitely look forward to the new trustees. But this came actually from a new trustee in a trustee training program, and asked this question in a consultation and said, It's pretty much like, we're just gonna go ahead and preface the episode. It's in the description. It's not legal advice, not financial advice. So we'll go ahead and preface that out easy right there. No legal advice, no financial advice. But we're gonna have that conversation in the public because it's almost like, well, we're in the public and we don't really know what private property is. We're in the public and we don't know what private property is. That has to be awareness, or brought to the awareness, is we're in the public. What is private property? I see a sign on someone's yard. What makes a private corporation? So we definitely had to go over this, with that particular trustee. Very important. It's easy to just go ahead and, kind of talk to a trustee and say, hey, trustee, this is what it is. We're going to go over the fact that there is a thing called private property, there is a thing called public property. And we're going to cover that today in this particular episode. So definitely appreciate you for tuning in live, listening, replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens, and replay. We got New York tuning in live, listening, and replay. Always appreciate New York for tuning in live, listening, and replay. So let's just hop into it. This is one of those things that you see the signs on people's yards and you see private property. Oh, okay. Well, I want to travel on the public property highway, the public municipal corporate highway, the corporate municipal streets that supposedly are supposed to stay clean and stay put together via taxes from the public, and people want to travel publicly as a private person. It's going to be a little challenging, don't you think? It's going to be a little challenging for you to be private in the public, right? It's going to be a little challenging. So we talk about, well, private property. You see how when you see the signs on the property, we see the signs on the property, well, what makes it private? Is it in a public person's name or is it in a private person's name? So when we talk to our trustees, we already know that a trust is a person. So is it in a public person's name or a private person's name? This is the issue. Oh man, I want to know what makes it public. I want to know what makes it private. That's what I want to know. Is it in a public trust name or is it in a private trust name? Okay. Let's talk about it. Because is it public property? Is it for the benefit of the public? Because you have it in an improper position? Is your estate, your private estate, in a public position? Is your private estate in a public position? In a position where if you die, you got to go through a public process. Because there's a difference between public property and how it's administered, and there's a difference between private property and how it's administered. Private property is administered differently than public property, because public property is set up for the benefit of the public. Private property is set up for the benefit of private parties that may or may not be disclosed to who? The public. This is the difference. These are some of the differences. We don't need to be a lawyer. We don't need to be those things. We can have these conversations because we can interview lawyers. We interview accountants. We had this conversation, come up with a lawyer on the phone about, well, why would you want to put your property in a private position when you're still operating in the public? Well, let's go there. How do they have some of the largest corporations in the world and they're private corporations? They're private. The company that used to own Google, they were private and then they took it over in the public. Just like this so called new company took over Facebook. Now it's called Meta. Private companies come out and they take over public companies. They become majority owner. Not always. Sometimes a company starts out as a private company and it stays private. And that means the majority owners traditionally are not disclosed. They're private. So how do you have private corporations? How do you have private property operating in the public? You can see that going on in the public, correct? I mean, you're familiar with these private corporations. See, we start the trends over at the vault, so we understand that now it's not just going to be talking about a trust, because that's what they're talking about on the internet. Oh, just put it in a trust. But there's a difference between private property and public property. There's a difference between private trust and public trust. But see, the gurus on the internet just want to tell you to get in the trust because they're making an affiliate income from it. Is that what it is? You're making an affiliate income, so it's okay to tell someone to go get in a living public property asset management entity that still involves fees from the public. That's truly not privacy. It doesn't protect your privacy. Why? Because it's protecting the public's interest, because it's a public entity. It is for the benefit of the public. That's why it's public property. So we hear these things, we see these things, and we just want to bring awareness to it because, it's nothing better than having a trustee come to you and ask you a question and you're able to add value to the world from a private position. See, we have these conversations in private, but when we talk about the public, why don't they know that? Why don't they think like that? We have someone we're dealing with right now at the vault. Public lawyers. Why would a public lawyer promote to you a private process? They wouldn't. They're barred. They're public. People sometimes when they get in trustee training say, "Oh, I need to find a lawyer, need to find a lawyer." Who are you going to find? A public lawyer or a private attorney? Private counsel. Someone that knows private contracts. When you talk to these public attorneys, why don't you ask them, do you know contract? Because contract's private. There are public contracts, but do they share these values of privacy, the importance of privacy? Why would they? They went to a public school, public college, maybe a private college, but still, they come out and they practice in the what? Public. They're practicing. We were talking to one of the mentors recently, and he's like, Trust Christian, you want to know why they say lawyers are practicing? Now, this is coming from someone that is a Juris Doctorate, so obviously they have the leeway to make these type of statements. And it says, because they don't actually have a license. Oh, did we say that in the public? Because they don't have a license. They don't have a license, ladies and gentlemen. So then we go over to the judges. Judges are when you study how judges are in the position they're in, who do you think is more powerful, a judge or a lawyer? Right. They have two different educations. Oh, he was an attorney. Oh, yeah, we hear you. He was an attorney, right? Right. How do judges become judges? Are they practicing law from the bench? Do you know what that's called when a judge is practicing law from the bench? I thought they were the administrators. How licensed are they in law? Hmm. Two different educations. Public education and a private education. But is it talked about in the public? Why would it be? It's private. You have to be okay with these distinguishments because we're in the public. We're in the WWW era. We're in the public. The internet's the public. The public is the municipality. It's the arbitrary lines on the paper that divides one state from the next, one jurisdiction from the next. But then you're legally allowed, quote unquote, whether it's a right or a legal right, you're able to have private property in a municipality. Right? Right. So what's more powerful? Private property or public property? What's more valuable of a position to be in? Private property position or public property position? But how can you expect a public attorney to tell you that? You can't. Because if they did, they would do it. But they don't. Because that's not their job. Their job is, for the most part, to administer the public situations that they deal with. That's why they're practicing. It's okay, but they're practicing. There's no license. It's not like driving a car. What qualifications do they have? All lawyers aren't created equal, right? All accountants aren't created equal, right? Right. You can't expect all lawyers to give you the same information because they all have a different form of a public education. Because in the private, it's very fluid. The contract, the rules and terms of an agreement, and the traditional forms of a contract. See, the public comes from the private. Those laws didn't change. Those principles didn't change. What's up for interpretation is the public property, the public administration of public property, because it's changing. They're practicing. So we appreciate you for Trustee asking that question. One, that was always a great thing because this is something we don't think we've ever done an episode on, and it's a big deal for a lot of people when they come to reaching out about, oh man, how do I make sure something's public or private? Of course, there are contracts in place. Period. There are contracts. Public property versus private property shares that there are public contracts and then there's private contracts. There's public trust and then there's private trust. But when you go to the attorney, are they setting you up in public trust or private trust? That's how you know you're in the perspective of private property versus public property. Why would the public attorney set you up in a private trust? Why would the public attorney set you up in a private property position? They administer things in the public. It's almost in private property disputes, you almost don't need a lawyer. We'll share with you how the private property disputes look. Okay, so right before, okay, so let's just say you're going to sue somebody. It's not financial advice, legal advice. So you can go research yourself. We're sharing with you information so you can go talk to your attorneys and your accountants. We provide that conversation. So, okay, so let's just say, oh man, we got to make sure we got our point. So when it comes to these public attorneys, y'all, when you go to the public attorney and you say, okay, I'm looking to take assets, put them in a proper position, why would they tell you to put it in a private position where they're not able to collect on fees? In the public, they have public entities to transfer wealth. Oh, everybody wants to talk about generational wealth. It's a generational wealth syndrome right now. Hey, generational wealth. What's generational wealth? $5 million? What's generational wealth? They playing games out here in the public, talking about some generational wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and set the record straight because the record's pretty clear. It's called high net worth investor. That's the beginning. High net worth investor is over $30 million. High net worth investor. How you gonna be a generational wealth talking about I'm going for generational wealth status and you ain't even putting in the work? You're not doing the work. You're not focused on ideas that are going to generate millions of dollars in a period of time for you to have generational wealth before 45, 50, 60. Even if you're going to put it before 70. What's generational wealth? If you're a high net worth investor at 30, generational wealth is easy 50 to 100 million dollars. Are you going to put that together? But the theme of scam today, whether that's in crypto or any other scam, oh, we're trying to build generational wealth. What is generational wealth? So this is the new scam. Oh, just go into real estate because that's how they're passing along wealth. What are you talking about? Most of the millionaires, from what we've seen across 10 to 20 years, they don't make their money in real estate. They put it in real estate. So how are you going to say you're building generational wealth in a slow moving market where they're always begging for a recession in? Oh man, real estate prices are going crazy. We need to reduce the prices of real estate because it's been on a rally for the past 20 years, right? Have prices gone down in real estate in 20 years? They're at all-time highs. That's a fact. Oh man, I don't want the real estate to be that high. Sure, it came down a little bit from the past year or two, but when you look at it over a period of time, the markets are incredibly what you call inflated or higher. So this is what we deal with. We deal with, the everyday barrage of playing with your emotions on should you be public or should you be private. You got people in the public saying there's no such thing as privacy. You don't need your privacy. And then think about it. You vote for these parties. Do you vote for the parties that say people should not have privacy? You got to check yourself when you look in the mirror. If you're in a jurisdiction that says privacy is a value, private property, passing along generational wealth in a private perspective is a value. Not saying here saying, "Well, no, we gotta help out the poor." What are you talking about? Have you seen what that population looks like in these what do they call them? Like nowadays in America they call them like man, they call them like some type of city, but it's like tent cities. They got tent cities. People are living in tents in top three economies in the world. San Francisco, New York, LA. They got tent cities where people are homeless. Well, the public takes care of them through public funds because they're on public property. They're right next to one of the top flight public libraries in America. They're next to one of the public civic centers in America. And yes, they have a homeless population sitting outside because they're sitting on public property. Nepotism, right? They're taking care of their own, sitting on public property, right? But let's get back to this private annihilation. Oh man, I want to be private, trust Christian of all, but I'm gonna keep voting for the people that want to go in office and take away private rights. Just something so simple as a private right. They don't. Do you hear that? But in the public, they want to say, "Oh, well, why do you need private rights? Why do you need those things? Why should you have those things?" They make you question those things, right? Because it's the public. It's okay. Are you okay with that? It's the public. But are you aware that the private rights have not changed? Oh, no doubt about it. All it is in the public is a big sham. That's why you got these public attorneys playing games with you. Oh, look, they don't want to tell you about the private. Why? Because they won't be able to collect fees. That's all it is. When you don't need a lawyer, they don't give fees. You think people don't win cases when they defend themselves? Public attorneys are excellent for the public. Anytime you have a public dispute, public attorneys are excellent for public disputes. You find the right lawyer, they're excellent for public disputes. Is anything wrong with private disputes? Remember, these people go to school. They know of it. There's a difference between knowing of it and practicing it. See, we can have these conversations because when we get on the phone with the lawyers, they don't dispute private practices, they just don't use them. And since they don't use them, they're not going to promote them. So you can't expect your lawyer or a lawyer in the public to say, hey, yeah, there's this private process that, almost could eliminate 15. There we go. We're going to go there with y'all. They're going to take 10% of your estate for your generational wealth. So if you generate 100 million, they're taking 10 million. That's 10 million less in your family's mouth. If you generated $1 million, they're taking 10% minimum. You can Google this. How much does a lawyer take when you go through probate, whether it's in a trust or if it's in a will? How much does the lawyer get when they're administering your generational wealth that the gurus over the internet telling you to generate? Oh, go go get millions, go be generational wealth. So when you become generational wealth and you administer it, and it's going to be administered? Is it going to be administered in the public or is it going to be administered in the private? And go check the numbers for yourselves. Is the lawyers going to take 10% minimum? Oh, I made $1 million. I'm passing along a measly $1 million. Not a measly, but it's a million. They're getting 10. Bam! Just like that. They got 10% of your so-called, I'm passing along generational wealth to my kids, because I got to pass along generational wealth to my kids. You got to pass along generational wealth to your kids. And they're getting 10%. The lawyers are going to get 10%. We got to go through fees. Remember, attorney fees, court fees. How do they administer it? Is it private or is it public? They don't want to tell you about the private process. And I'm not going to say if a trust Christian was in the vote, we wouldn't either. But that's what the public attorneys are there for. They're to administer public processes. That's why you come to the vault, so you can educate yourself to prepare yourself as a continuing education program to say, I want to make sure my team can implement private strategies just as much as public strategies because they go hand in hand. But one's not more important than the other. Well, the private's more important than the public because how are you going to pass along generational wealth and say that you're eroding your money just by leaving it in the public? That's the facts. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is not private family foundation by accident. They're not in this charitable remainder trust. Oh, I'm going to give you a charitable remainder trust. That's what the lawyers and these guys over the internet want to say. Oh, you go into whatever. What is it? CRT, charitable remainder trust. We deal with those all the time. You think your lawyer's not going to suggest that on the light end so they can just get just a little bit of money out of you for the contract? Hey, you're not ready for a foundation. You're not ready to die. You're not Bill Gates. Isn't that what we've been saying at the Vault from the beginning? It's not, if it ain't the lawyers, it's the financial planners telling you what? Hey, you don't have enough money for that trust. You don't have enough money for this information. Do you hear how the public, excuse our language, the public assholes that they are? Because that's what, whether you know it or not, it could be ignorance, it could be programming, it could be education. A variant of things still puts them in a position where this is what they're willing to say to you as another human being that's working hard to pass along generational wealth, thinking out and hiring this person to get the job done to help you do it. And this is what they say to you when you go to these guys. This is how you know it's financial discrimination. But guys want to sit on the internet talking about some financial education, financial literacy. There is none. If it was the case, then the financial planners are supposed to be educating, but they're not. They're sitting behind waiting for you to do what? Pay a fee. And you don't get financial information for free. That's why it's not taught in public school for free. If it was such a great education in public school, we all damn near would be rich in that respect. We all would have solid bank accounts. So yeah, some people say, oh, well, it can't be all of us trust Christian. Well, do you know the savings rate? Do you know the investment rate for countries like Japan? Do you know the savings rate for countries like China? Countries have a process. Some countries are more lenient for debt than others. Think about this. You go into a contract in the public saying you own a house which is public property because they can foreclose on the property at any moment. That's how you know it's public property. You want to know how it's not private property? Because you can get foreclosed on it in the public. You don't get foreclosed on in the private. But how would you know that if you're not in environments that don't facilitate that information? Private property versus public property. Private information versus public information. Private lawyers versus public lawyers. Oh man, Trust Christian, let me get on the internet. Let me Google it real quick. Let me Google lawyers. Yeah, these guys that created Bill Gates Foundation, they gonna do it for me for the cheap, right? No, they're not going to do it for the cheap. The guy, I want to be set up like Donald Trump. This is what they reach out to the vote and say. Oh, I want to be set up like Donald Trump. I heard the episodes, Trust Christian and Vote, and I want to be set up like Donald Trump. I want to be in a position like Donald Trump. I see how he's moving. He doesn't have a tax return. I see that it's working. He was the president. I see he didn't go to jail. He was supposed to be hit for tax evasion for years. He still ain't went to jail. This man obviously is in the right position. Right? A lot of infractions on his life. A lot of mistakes from the outside perception looking in. But for some odd reason, the one thing that they tried to bust this man on was taxes and finance. And somehow he makes it out squeaky clean. Well, my lawyers, my accountants, they don't want me to show my tax returns. I told them it's okay. I don't mind. I'm really not taking in a salary in the first place because I know the tax law. I, as an entrepreneur, have got around people like Trust Christian in the Vault, and I've learned business management skills because he went to Wharton. So he knows he hires the attorneys. He knows he hires the accountants. And if you can't get the job done, because of course he hires and fires, he had a show called You're Fired. So of course he's going to hire and fire more effective and efficient people. We're actually talking to someone in a consultation this week, and he said, Trust Christian, literally, if you can do what you can do, and my team is moving the way they're moving, I might have to fire them. I've had these people on my team for 10 years. Well, when you're looking to go to the next level, like they trying to hold you back from, because they told you you can't do this or shouldn't do this until you get to that level, to this so-called random level that you just told them. You actually gave them free information. You told them, I want to get to this level. And they said, well, when you get to that level, that's when we can talk about it. When you get to that level, when you get to that money level, we can, maybe a trust is better for you then. Because then you're going to be out of the public. Then you're going to be retired. We love that term, retirement. Because guess what? All of our mentors are financially independent. And they're not technically sitting down, but they're retired. They don't need the money. They have cash flowing assets, but they still do something to better the world. They do something to add value. They do something that keeps their mind moving, keeps their body moving. Something that they enjoy, something that they're passionate about. So hold on. Is that what Bill's doing? Bill Gates doing in his private family foundation? Yeah, that's what it looks like. You do the things that you love doing in the private family foundation. That's fair. That's one. But do you have how long is it going to take before you get there? And you want to know what's going to take longer to get there? If you're paying fees to these guys in the process. And these guys aren't helping you mitigate your liabilities. They're not helping you lower your liabilities. See, in the process of building wealth, you lower your liabilities. You don't continue to increase them completely. It's liability, not expense, but liability. Personal liability. Oh, well, why would you want to take these assets out of your name there, potential trustee? Why would you want to take these assets out of your name? Well, I want to do what Trust Christian and the Vault's talking about. I want to trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. I'm still going to control the assets, right, lawyer? Well, yeah, I'm not saying you're not going to control it, but how are you going to buy a house in your name? The family trust owns houses, right? Whether you're alive or dead, right? Right. Oh, hold on. Let's say it again. The family trust owns houses whether you're alive or dead, right? Right. But the public lawyer didn't administer a private process because it's going to minimize their fees. I mean, we didn't pull the cat out of the hat here. It's one of those things that's just the reality. It's like asking, well, why don't they just randomly volunteer information to you? Such as there are private trusts, but you're not financially ready for the private ones, so we're going to keep you in the public ones and let you be taxed out of your wealth. We're going to let you stay in the public ones and, stay personal, so somebody can sue you out of your assets. Keep something in your name so somebody can sue you out of your assets. That's what the public lawyers are saying, correct or wrong. Hold on, let's say it again. The public lawyers say keep something in your name so you can potentially be sued out of assets. Now, if you're okay with that, that's okay. The lawyers are there to collect on fees, and the process is there for those people. But for the people that say, "Oh, I'm going private, trust Christian and Vault. I'm going private." Everybody says this. They contact the Vault all the time. "Oh, I'm moving in a private manner. I gotta get it into this private. I don't need Social Security. I don't need. Did you know if you make a certain amount of money, you don't get to collect Social Security in your personal name? How about that? You don't get to collect Social Security. You can check this with your attorneys. You can check this with your accountants. This is just a question to ask. Well, if I make a certain amount of money, does the government take away my welfare benefits? Yes. Interesting. Public property versus private property. Okay. This is what you're dealing with. Hold on. Why didn't the financial gurus tell y'all that? If I keep something in my name, hold on. But then this is the new guru line. Put it in a trust. Remember, they come to us all the time. They're in living trust. They're in public trust. That's a fact. Sometimes the lawyer doesn't even tell them that they're in a living trust or a revocable trust. The lawyer may not even say it to them. They'll just say, well, yeah, you're the grantor and you're the trustee. And guess what? I could sue you. That's what. It's no, oh man, well, how does that work? If the asset is in your name and then you see the structure because they don't fully explain it, well, if that's the case, can you be sued out of the asset? Can there be a creditor's lien attached to that trust? But oh no, no, the lawyers, they help me protect myself in a public trust. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are lucky. And you're not lucky because when you're in the United States, you're in a very litigious environment. The more money you get, you have to protect it. So how is it that the lawyers and the accountants are not sharing that information with you? Because they're going to make you pay for it because it's a fee. That's why. It's okay, but that's why. You think why? Think about this. They need you to put them on retainer because the only way they can really collect a performance fee is if they go to court. Otherwise, what fees do they get? If they don't get a performance fee for winning in court, what fees do they get? Oh, well, I got to draft a minute for you guys because you guys didn't have an in-house secretary for your family estate. You hear that? We had an interview with a third-generation trustee at the recent conference. Trustee says, this is a trustee once again. That's why we had them at the conference. Trustee says, I said, okay, so how do you guys handle those internal workings? How do you handle, having a treasurer? How do you handle accounting? Well, we have professionals in our family that have gone to school and they pretty much take care of some internal workings. And yes, we also have a external virtual CFO that does tax preparation or what you call the tax filing if there ever is a need for it. And there is because they do operate in a private family foundation and otherwise. They have in-house family members that went to school professionally to be there for the family. That's private. Their private family foundation, you hear that? It was supposed to be charity, but it's private. Right. So why didn't the lawyers tell you about the private family foundation, but they told you about the public? Because there's advantages to one and the other. Correct. But which one has the most advantages? And which one everybody says, oh, I want to be like Donald Trump, I want to be like Bill Gates. Right. So why are you not using the same vehicles to maintain, preserve, and have wealth? Go from one generation to the next. Because you have the public lawyers and the public accountants, and they're giving you public advice. And it's okay. But that's what it's called. Public advice. That's all. Appreciate you for tuning in live or listening to replay. This is the Vault. Christian at trustchristian.com. You can feel free to reach out and get a consultation. We're really excited. We actually just got this question recent. It's just so interesting. We've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now. Maybe we just haven't gotten that question. Maybe it was just the way that they asked it. Maybe it was just a great refresher going into the new year and hearing that question. But to hear the question, what's the difference between public property and private property? You know, when you see those signs on people's property, it's asking who owns the property? Who owns it? Is it a public person or a private person? Oh man, how do I get my property inside of private status? How you get it in the private status? Are you in the private is there a private person that's gonna own it? Well, I created my trust. That this isn't Trust Christian Vault. This is what they say to Trust Christian Vault. So we don't say this at the vault, but this is what they say to Trust Christian Vault. I created a Trust Christian in the vault, and I'm trying to put it in my private trust. You hear that sound? I'm trying to put it in my private trust. My private trust. And in turn, let's see how that works. But are you a private person? And not only that, is the trust a private person? Those are questions that you might want to ask yourself. Ask the creator of the contract or otherwise. Is it private? Is the contract private? Not public, private. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. We look forward to hearing from you. This is the Vault, episode 458, private property versus public property. Uh, just appreciate you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. It's always great, but we definitely wanted to do this episode because this is one of those great questions that we get always in the consultation. So just know, even when you get consultations, it's always going to add value to the larger and the greater and the whole overall, because these are just basic things that, it's like, well, why do I only know about public property? Because you got a public education. That's why. Why do you only know about a public mortgage? Because you are in the public. Why do you think you have a public mortgage? Because you are in the public. Are there private contracts for debt? Yes. Are there private contracts for a debt? Yes. So where's the education from your financial literacy gurus on the internet educating you about financial literacy? Are they talking about getting a private mortgage, or are they talking about getting a public mortgage so you can make your personal credit look good and get sued out of assets? Is that what's going on? That's what we know. Because there is private property and then there's public property. There's public debts and there's private debts. And remember, those fiat notes that you carry around, those dollar bills, if you got them, doesn't it say it can pay for public and private debts? Exactly. Because the system is built on the quality foundation of public and private, and it's not going anywhere. You don't need to live in fear. Let's live in creation and create. That's it. Can you create in the private? Sure. Can you create in the public? Sure. There's no need to condemn the public. Oh, they trying to get over me in the public then. Oh, I can't believe the public try to get over me on like that. Remember, the public it's like a situation like, okay, somebody slips and fall in a public environment. They have public funds set aside for people that can't afford to take care of themselves. It's for the public welfare. It's an insurance policy. That's how you know the country's built on the insurance industry. But when you come to people and you talk about private family banking, it's still a question whether they're going to get moving forward or not. Because they don't understand the country is built on insurance contracts. The money system that you put your money in the bank, right? You put your money in the bank is insured. Hopefully. It's supposed to be insured. That's the country you're living in. You're living in an environment that promotes private contracts, private property ownership rights. But oh no, it's no need to complain about the politicians and whoever. Oh man, they don't really want us to own private property. No, it's up to you to get that information, because clearly we see that we're dealing with the fact that if you have a public education, you didn't get the private education. As simple as that. How don't you know about a private mortgage? Why don't you know about a private contract if you don't? Everybody, why are you forced into a public contract? Is there a forcing of a public contract? Why would there be a forcing of a public contract? Oh, you got to get a public mortgage. If I go walk around the public right now, everybody going to tell me to go to some public bank to get a public mortgage. How come no one's going to tell me in the public how to get a private contract to take out a loan and pay for my private property? How come no one can educate me, but we're supposed to be living in the age of financial education? Oh man, there's financial literacy. Every goofball on the internet is financial literacy coach. So did they talk to you about private trust? Did they talk to you about private contracts? Did they talk to you about protecting private property rights? Or they just say, oh, same thing the lawyer's going to tell you. You don't need to worry about that. Get your money up first. That's what we're going to end it at. Because that's the point. That's what they're thinking. They either want some money off you through fees. Because at the vault, we only really need a one-time fee. That's a consultation fee. You don't need to be doing a whole bunch of consultations. Just like they get their retainer fee, that's because they want to get paid before they really get on the phone with you. It's a retainer fee. There's a fancy word for fee. Either way, they want to get paid for talking to you. And they want to get paid for the information that they're sharing. But you also got to let them know, hey, this is how I need to get something done. And you either can do it, and I'm going to keep you on board, or you're going to find a solution, and I'm going to keep you on board, or you're going to get laid off like thousands of people every day that can't do their job that the boss needs them to do. It's a cost-cutting measure. You got to reduce your cost. They're costing you opportunities because you may not be in the correct structure, because you may not be in the correct environment. That's why. Christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian@trustchristian.com. Peace. Enjoy. Appreciate Northern California for tuning in live. Listen to replay. Always appreciate Northern California to 707. That's 707 in Northern California. Appreciate you for tuning in live. Listen to replay. Always appreciate Northern California, New York. Everyone else, feel free to type in. But where you tune in live, listen to replay. Always appreciate it. Hey. Food for thought. Appreciate the trustee for asking the question. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live and listening to replay consultations. Christian@trustchristian.com. Peace. Enjoy.